Welcome to Cashflow Savannah podcast.
How have you been?
I've been good. I have a great thing to report, and it's timely based on our subject today. Our subject today is hard money lending, private money lending, I guess, either way you want to say it. And it was interesting because in this episode, we get into talking about self-directed IRAs and 401ks. And me personally, I had a job, a long time ago when I lived in South Carolina. It was actually before I got married. And I, very judiciously had, I think 20%, it might have been 10, I can't remember, but they pulled it out and I worked there for 2 years. And that money has been sitting with that hospital for years and years and really not growing. And I've been kind of frustrated about it. And it was in a 403B. And so I started the process a while ago trying to get it moved, and it just took forever. But it
hmm
worked out beautifully in that I was able to move it to an IRA with Charles Schwab, and it's now a self-directed IRA. And just as I was finishing the process, it took weeks. Every time you got a signature, it was like 2 more weeks. And, of course, it's very regulated. And so I got an opportunity with a very good friend of mine. I know the founders of this company called Hearthfire Holdings, and they do investments in self-storage, and they are able to legally take in IRA funds. And so they let me in. I didn't have a ton to invest. Of course, they want lots of money, to get into the fund. And I called and I kind of begged, and they said, "We'll take your money. It's okay," because I've known them for a long time. So I get to be one of those like douchey people that can go to a party and go, "I have 8,000 doors." Like, I hate when people do that.
Oh, you're one of those people. Okay.
I'm, I'm kidding. I can be. I'm just saying I can be
I
because
know.
my teeny little IRA, it's like not a ton at
Yeah.
all. I'm in, so I can technically say I have. I need to figure out how many doors it is, but it's a pretty big purchase. It's three separate self-storage facilities that they're purchasing in the Northeast, and
Cool.
I get to get in on it as a JV with my teeny little bit of money in their fund. And so I'm kind of excited. So I'm putting my self-directed IRA funds to work in real estate, and I'm very excited. Like, they're going to pull the money from my Charles Schwab account, and then they'll pay out dividends every quarter. And then once they sell or refinance, I'll get the amount back. So I never touch it. It stays into my IRA. But I'm excited. I've never gotten to be into a project like this before. It's
Yeah.
the first
At
for me.
least, at least your money's working. It's
Right.
not anymore. So that's the main thing.
Right. I mean, I think my money, and I started there in 1999. Okay, that's how long it's been. And I think my money has gained maybe three or $4,000 in like 25 years. Like, it's terrible.
Yeah.
And I've been frustrated about it for a long time. And I should have done something about it sooner. But I am proud to say that I'm now lending too out of my
Cool.
IRA.
You now have 8,000 doors.
Right? I can now be a total douchebag. Party.
I wish I could say that.
That sounds terrible, but it's true. Like, when people say that, and I've heard people get up in front of the crowd. You have too, Chandler. We've been at Bigger Pockets, and they'll be like, "Oh, I have 1,400 doors," and it's like, just say, that you're investing with a company. Like, I just wouldn't phrase it like that.
Yeah, it is what it is. So we
Yeah,
are getting ready for St. Patrick's Day weekend here. So it's getting pretty hectic, huh?
Savannah is full. It's getting warm. The crowds are coming. Boy, as Sid was here, has been hopping. We've got booking after booking. I think we're fully booked this weekend. I'm pretty sure.
Short-term rentals are, yeah, they're doing well. A lot of people are coming in the last couple weeks. It's been pretty full. I think the last couple, two
Yeah.
or 3 weeks, been completely full. So it's good 3 weeks. Savannah has a lot going on. So
Yeah, it's picking up here nicely. I'm so thankful. So, anyway, on today's call, we have Jeff Jordan. I keep messing up his name, and it's not even that hard. And we have Julian Buick, and these guys are private money lenders and very informational, great local guys. Well, one of them is. And it was a pleasure getting to know them a little bit better.
yeah, I really enjoyed it. I've known Julian for probably over a year now, and he's been to like every meetup. He's just so consistent. Every time I see him there, he's like, "Hey, what's up?" I always say hey to him, and just really soft spoken. But once you get to know him, he really, really nice guy, and I bet he is awesome to work with. So
Yeah, he's a good guy. He's a master networker. Jeff doesn't live here, but they're partners, here in Savannah. And I want to just caveat this episode that I knew Jeff's background, and he had told me some crazy horror stories about being a real estate investor and a landlord. And these are all from the West Coast. Like, I'm just letting you know what a beautiful market we live in here in Savannah. He tells some horrible stories that will make your skin crawl. But it really made me very thankful that my investment portfolio is here in Savannah.
Yeah, for sure. No, I've always heard, and this is nothing political, but they're just like, hey, invest in red states and not blue. And I think that's just a prime example of
Yeah.
why they say that.
Yeah. Don't miss Jeff's stories. You'll be like shocked.
Yeah, for sure.
But they don't have a video of poo on the wall. I've gotten a lot of feedback over that video. Have you heard from people on that, Chandler?
I haven't, but that was something else for me to see for sure.
I've had several of my, agent clients reach out and go, "Oh my word, we just saw your YouTube, with Chandler about the poo on the walls," and they're just like horrified. And I'm like, "Yep,
That
that's
was the
a day
first
in the
time
life
for me.
too."
You took it a lot better than me. I was kind of like, what in the world? Who would do this? Like,
Yeah.
this is your property. Why you? But
I
hey,
love a good story. I was kind of happy. I was like, this is the best story ever. And I mean, seriously, Chandler, how many crazy stories do we have just from that one address?
there's
20. I mean,
plenty.
you give that address and I can knock your eyebrows back 14 times with something that's happened on that property. It's so
I
fun.
hope, I hope that calms down a little bit over there.
Yeah, me too. I hope it starts cash flowing. I mean,
There you
the
go.
reason all those stories is that it's not cash flowing, but it
Yeah,
will.
you know. So, well, we hope y'all enjoy this episode. Without further ado, we welcome Julian Buick and Jordan. You made me mess up his name too. Jeff Jordan.
Jeff Jordan. And it's not a hard
Jeff
name.
Jordan.
It's not
Jeff-
like his name is
I actually like that name, Jeff Jordan. It kind of goes well together.
Jeff Jordan.
Please
It's
enjoy.
Welcome to Cashflow Savannah. We have a very special friend of the show with us, Julian Buick. He is a local real estate investor, and we love Julian. And we also have Jeff Jordan, his business partner. And Jeff is joining us today from Kirkland, Washington. He's right outside of Seattle. And Julian and Jeff have a company together where they lend private money, and their company is called Sunnydale Productions. Did I get everything right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. You got it.
How are
Uh,
you doing today?
Doing great. How are you doing, Chandler?
Doing pretty good. It's finally warming up here in Savannah, so I'm happy about that. I'm
I
not
know
sure
it's
how
going
it
to be
is in
like 80
Washington.
degrees today.
Yeah, I don't want to hear about your guys crying about it being cold. It's been in the 30s here. I don't think you could touch that.
Oh man, yeah, I'm good. I'm good with that. I think we got a nice high 80 or low 80s today. So
Oh, yeah.
But it's been in the
I'm
50s
cool
and
with it.
60s, and I've been salty about it. I have been like complaining. It's March. I need it to be warm. Like, I've had a kind of a bad attitude about the weather lately.
We're finally getting a break. There's blue sky today and it's supposed to be approaching 70. But yesterday was skiing in the mountains with, new snow. So it was
Wow.
quite a transition from yesterday to today.
Wow. Well, you guys are both private money lenders, and tell us a little bit about your story. How did you become business partners? How did you get into real estate investing? We would love to hear from both of you, kind of how you got into this space.
Okay, well, I started off, I'm originally from Ireland, and I came over here in like 1996. I lived in Seattle for about 20 years. That's where I got to meet Jeff. And I'm an aerospace engineer by trade. Um, and I was working, just doing the usual working for a living, W-2 job, had a 401k. At some point realized that I'm going to be working till I'm like 70 years old, before I can afford to retire. So I was looking for other options. And I started working with a guy that did a lot of real estate investing and was always talking to me about real estate. So I started looking into it to see what the best way to do it was. he turned me on to a website called Bigger Pockets. And I started researching and listening to the podcasts and reading through the forums, and just got really active in the community. And Jeff and I knew each other. Our kids went to school together, played baseball together, and so I knew Jeff was into real estate as well. So we would, whenever we were watching the kids play baseball, I would sit and chat to him about real estate. And then they started to have Bigger Pockets meetups in Seattle. So I started to go along and drag Jeff along with me. And at that time, I hadn't done anything. I was just, really curious about how it all worked. And we went to the first meetup, and the guy was going around the room, asking everyone what they were doing. And I said that I was new and hadn't done anything. And at the end of the meetup, he pointed me out and he said, "You need to stop with the analysis paralysis and actually take some action." And I thought, what? It's my first meetup. I haven't, I don't even know if I want to do this. And this is what, I get called out in front of a crowd of people. So anyway, I went back and, I kind of talked to Jeff about it. And a lot of what he was doing was involved note investing. Back then, Jeff can go into it, but back then it was like 2015. So it was not long after the global financial crisis. And there was a lot of distressed notes, mortgage notes. And he was buying the notes and turning them around to get them paying again. And so I really like that aspect of it, the being on the funding side of it, like more of the finance side, rather than like, buying properties and getting your hands dirty, fixing and flipping properties and stuff. So at one of the meetups, I got talking to some people that were they were rehabbing properties, and they were like, "Well, if you have some money, we could use the money to help us fix up the properties." And I was like, "And we'll pay you a good return on your money." And I thought, well, that's actually not a bad idea. And I discussed it with Jeff, and he said, "Yeah, I mean, I've done that before. That's, as long as you're in a good position, as long as you've got security, against the property, like a promissory note or whatever, a security deed, warranty deed, against the property, then I guess it's a deed of trust in Seattle. Then that's the way to, just go ahead and do it." So that was my first foray into it. I used a HELOC that I had against my primary residence, took some money out, and lent it to these people that were fixing up a house. So that was my very first investment. And then I did that multiple times with multiple people in the Seattle area. And then I also used I had prior 401ks from companies that I'd worked for. And I found out that I could roll those over into a self-directed IRA account. And and then you can use that funds to lend to people. Then it doesn't have to be in the stock market. So I started doing that with my prior 401k money. And then, so I mean, that got the ball rolling. I probably did half a dozen or more deals before I got the opportunity to work with Jeff. It was a builder in Seattle was building like 4-row townhomes, and I was lending him money. And then this new opportunity came up for us to do our own new builds, partnering with these people. They were actually a hard money lending company in Seattle, and they had found out that I did private money lending. And so they wanted me to get involved in that. And then Jeff looked at it and said, "Well, that sounds like a good idea. I'd kind of like to do that as well." So the two of us jumped into that one. And instead of buying the property was owned in an LLC. And so we purchased the LLC. And the LLC was called Sunnydale Productions. and that's how we ended up with our hard money, well, our private money lending company called Sunnydale Productions. That deal, we were going to build these properties in Seattle. We did a lot of the development work. We never actually got to break ground on it because a builder came and made us an offer that we couldn't refuse. So we ended up selling that, almost doubling our money on that one. And then since we had the LLC open, we decided that we would keep working together. Round about that time, I had moved down to Savannah, and I was looking for opportunities in Savannah. And we started just using the same company brand to make the loans in Savannah. So it was once I got down to Savannah, a lot of networking involved and trying to find new people to lend to since I didn't know anyone down here. And it was the same deal, just going to meetups in Savannah and trying to find people. And here we are 5, 6 years later, and we've got quite a lot of people that we lend to down here. So that's how I got into it.
Sweet.
Yeah, I've watched you kind of build the Savannah arm of your business on your back, Julian. Like you're great at getting out and meeting people, and all the big flippers that I know all work with you and Jeff. And that's really impressive that you've built it like that. That's really cool.
Yeah. Well, I'm the boots on the ground. Jeff is the behind the scenes guy, and at first I was doing a lot of the administrative work, and then Jeff was so at a certain point he said to me like this, he retired from his original job that he had, and he had more time on his hands to take over the administrative side of it. So that gave me more time to go out and network and try to find more opportunities. So
Jeff, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you got started, and then go ahead and tell us like what your role is in the company.
Sure. So, yeah, like Julian said, I've kind of retired from my original gig. I had started a water heating company when I was 19, and grew that to about 150 employees down the whole West Coast. And while it was making money, I kind of needed a place to shelter some funds. So I ended up looking to real estate as kind of a place to put money. And I ended up with, I think I had about 15 single family homes and a commercial building, actually 2 commercial buildings, as I was kind of going down that path. It got big enough. I really didn't want to be a landlord anymore because it was becoming such a distraction. So I actually got out of everything right before everything went south. So it was like everybody thought it was brilliant that I saw it coming. It had nothing to do with that, but it all worked out. But then I kind of transitioned. I was buying some fix and flip, some foreclosure homes at the auction. Got into that for a while, and at first it was very lucrative. But like anything else, once kind of people understand that there's some money to be made, people flock to it, and eventually the profit kind of dwindles as the competition goes up. So I kind of moved around from one thing to the other depending on what the best kind of the target was. So I did the fix and flip for quite a bit, and then we were trying to buy bank REO in bulk, and we met a group down in Plano, Texas, that we were going to buy bulk REO from, and they introduced us into notes, and this is around 2009. So everything had kind of blown up already, and we had no experience with notes at all. But they basically introduced us to this, and the fact that these homes were being occupied by people already, they weren't going to be beat up, and they were with people that wanted to essentially stay in their homes, but the banks weren't willing to work with them. So we ended up buying 200 properties over that weekend.
Wow.
And through basically buying distressed notes, and converted them all to basically to where we took agreement for deed, got the properties back. Essentially what these people, they were all behind looking for a loan modification, and the lender wouldn't budge on it because they didn't want to set a precedence. So they sold them all to us for 10 cents on the dollar. And we basically got them back up and running. So we did that for quite a while until that ran out.
I'm sorry, just to clarify what you're saying, REO is real estate owned for the listener. So that means the bank has taken over ownership and the bank now owns it by foreclosure.
Yes.
And then, so you took over the notes and then you then foreclosed on the property to take ownership?
So but originally the REO, we didn't go that route. So we were going down there to look at that. But then they said, hey, have you guys ever considered investing, buying notes? And I had no idea what that even meant. And then they basically ran us through the process of how that worked. And the difference between, they said, well, the REO, you've got vacant properties, the copper's probably all ripped out, they're in bad shape. As well with the notes, you're buying them at roughly the same discount that they could offer, but people are in them. And in most cases, you can work with them and, you can get them back on track because they really wanted to stay there, but it was just the climate we were in. Nobody was paying their mortgage because they thought, well, I'm upside down. So we bought them 10 cents on the dollar off the principal value of the loan. And you go back to the homeowner, and most of them thought that their house was maybe worth what the loan was or 80% of it. So it gave us a ton of room to work with. And so we would offer to reset the loan, forget about the arrears, start over. But in order to do that, they had to sign the deed over to us and we would do a land contract back to them. And so as long as they made all their payments, everything's fine. They could refi, take us out. But if they didn't make the payment, then it reverts back to a rental and we can evict them rather than have to foreclose. So it allowed us to have a large quantity of properties, but not have the headaches of a landlord because they still had responsibility for maintaining the house, taxes, insurance, all of that. So we did that for quite a while until it's a much longer story how that ran out, which I won't get into. But then we started buying bulk houses, bulk homes from, I'm trying to remember who it even was, but we were buying, essentially getting auction blocks of homes and buying 20 of them a month and just turning them wholesaling.
Wow.
In our turn, we're typically, average hold time was about 3 weeks on them. So, and we were doubling our money. So that was great, but it eventually, the list ran dry and it went from 20 to 10 to 5 to down to a couple. Then kind of got back into flipping again in Columbus, Ohio. At one point, I think we had 20 flips going at a time. So went big into that because there was a lot of opportunity there. But similar to anything else, competition came in, the buy side started to go up, and eventually the profits dwindled. And that was right about the time that that Julian started coming up with some opportunities in Savannah. And, I looked at that market and opportunities looked great. The buy side looked very, affordable. It just kind of went from there.
Sweet.
Wow. You've done a lot.
Yeah. What I like is kind of like it's like you find opportunity where there's not much competition and you could take it. And then when competition comes in, you're like, all right, I'm gonna go find the next opportunity.
Well, I think it can be, you need to keep your eyes open because if you get too fixated on one thing, I mean, real estate, it is a moving target. And if you just go, okay, I'm a flipper, I'm always going to be a flipper. And eventually, the market kind of goes sideways. You really have to, when that happens, there's always an opportunity on some other area of the market. You just have to be open to it.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, real estate is very cyclical. I agree. I mean, what I used to buy in my portfolio is not what I'm buying today. And that doesn't mean that what I bought then was bad. It's just that things change. And I've had people hear interviews that I did in 2019 and they go, well, aren't you heavy on the 31404 zip code? And I'm like, well, yeah, I was in 2019, but we're many years past that or whatever. So yeah, I think that's really part of your special sauce, Jeff, is that when you saw things dropping, you got out and you were an early adopter, you made great money and then you got the heck out, which A lot of people tend to come to the game very late and then are shocked, by the oversaturation. So,
Yeah, usually if I see like people going nuts on the buy side, I go, okay, maybe I should be on the sell side. So, because a lot of people, they, like I said, they come in late to the game after everybody's already kind of bragging about, oh, I made this much money on, I bought this house and I did this and that. And, once everybody's in it, it's usually too late.
Mhm. So do you own any of that anymore? Any real estate at all anymore or no?
Do I own any? Is that
Yeah,
what you said?
you hold.
I think I'm just about. I mean, we still own like the original notes that we bought, so technically we own those. We're down to I think about 30 left because we've just been waiting for those people to refi out, and it's just taken time. But those are dwindling. And I just sold, I think, my last rental home that I bought in 1999. I had one left, and it's gone. So,
Okay.
Jeff, before we get into private money lending, I had the pleasure of going to lunch with you, and you had some great stories about being an investor and a landlord on the West Coast. And, Chandler and I, we mainly invest here in Georgia. So, being a red state, we have very different tenant landlord laws. And I really beg you, will you tell our listeners some of the stories that you told me? Like you've been through.
oh, yeah. That's why I don't invest in Seattle.
Right. Tell us why you don't invest in Seattle, Jeff, from firsthand knowledge. We would love to hear this.
Oh, it's a blank show. Can you say that word on this? So yeah, I've had some really bad experiences there. One of them, we were going to build a 4 townhomes in this Green Lake area, which used to be a really nice area in Seattle. And there was a single family home on it that we had. There was a tenant in there. We're going through all the permitting to build this thing. The first surprise, we're building what I would consider affordable housing by taking down one big house and putting up, 4 smaller ones. The city of Seattle hits us with $115,000 affordable housing fee to do this out of the chute.
What?
So, yeah. So that was our first surprise.
That's an oxymoron.
What's that?
It's an oxymoron that they would charge you this high fee to do affordable housing.
Yeah. So then once we got all of our permits ready to go, that we had a tenant that in there that knew what was going on at the minute that we got the green light that he needed to move. So he moved out, no problem. The very first week that he was out, I got a phone call from the neighbor saying that your house is full of squatters. And so I sent over the builder that was going to work with us on this. He was the first one that kind of got him out, plywooded the home up. The very next day, I got a phone call again from the neighbor that, hey, they're back. There's garbage everywhere. So I had to call the police, which I didn't think they'd actually do anything because in Seattle, they don't. But they actually went out and they said, yeah, we found there's 10 people in the home. They've set up tents in the basement. And he said that there's, needles and it looks like a freeway underpass, which I don't know if yours probably aren't like ours, but they're full of trash. And it was completely like within days, the home was trashed. We were going to tear it down. But my frustration was if I can't keep these people out of here and I have no support from the city, how am I going to build a house here? How am I going to put, the copper is going to be ripped out of the wire as fast as we can put it in, unless I'm going to put security there 24/7. And then we had a poster sign that was showing what we were proposing to do, and it got vandalized immediately. Somebody hit it, tagged it. So I got a fine in the mail from the city of Seattle for, I think it was like $350. And like, you've got to be kidding me. I got so frustrated. We ended up selling the property off to a builder. And then the funny thing is, so that's been long gone. And I just recently got notice that the city of Seattle was suing me for an unpaid water main extension from something that was sold 5 years ago.
Oh,
It's
God.
just because supposedly some form didn't get done to transfer ownership. We're getting it taken care of, but it's just that's consistent with working with the city. So yeah, that's one of many.
Wow.
Yeah, so I just got tired of all the bureaucracy and hypocrisy. Savannah is just it's just a much more better environment to work in, and the opportunities are better.
For
We've
sure.
dealt with some
For sure.
sucks. Oh, it's terrible.
Yeah.
So how do you build anything in Seattle? Like how did the next builder build something?
I'm sorry, what was that?
How do you build something in Seattle if that's just always happening? Like,
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's difficult.
yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I think it used to be pretty profitable, and if you've got it down and you're already well established, and you know the inspectors, et cetera, you can keep it going. But I don't know, especially in the city of Seattle, I don't know how anybody does it because I'll drive over there and it's so different from where I'm at on the east side going over to Seattle. It's dramatically different. The minute you cross over that bridge, it's like going into the Thunderdome or something. It's just, there's all of a sudden there's just graffiti and trash and crime. It's sad because used to be a really beautiful city, and it's just over the last, 4 years, just completely just ruined.
Well,
Man.
I feel like you told me when as well, you did tell me the story and you said that these guys they know the law very well, which is common, and that so, they'll go squat and then they'll hold up a piece of paper and go, I have a lease, and then you now are forced to go through the whole eviction process. Didn't you tell me that does happen where they're forging leases and just a simple piece of paper or something?
Yeah, there was an issue, even beyond that, there's squatters that have just moved into houses, and there was a situation where a guy went away from his home. Squatters moved in, and he came home, and the police, nobody would help him get him out of their house. And the guy he's living in a van while there's somebody living in his house, and they
What?
wouldn't help him. Yeah, it's really ridiculous.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
So, Julie, I heard you say before one time on one of the podcasts that I just listened to that's not legal down here. You can't just move into a house and say you have squatters' rights because you don't.
No.
You only have squatters' rights if you did have a legal lease and then the lease expires or something, then you have rights. But you can't just move in and say, I'm a squatter, I live here, because the police will just go in and tase you and drag you out.
Right. Well, the law is that if you occupy the property for longer than 30 days, you can, in like for a short-term rental is where I'm going. For example, you could have technically squatters' rights, right? And say, well, she's known I've been here for 2 months, and but in the state of Georgia, if you are not paying, you are out, period. These judges do not play. Chandler and I both have been to eviction court multiple times. Now, it might take a little bit, but it is doable. Like the squatter does not have rights. I had just for context, I had a property in Rincon, and it was vacant for many years. We flipped it to commercial. We were selling it, and we got a squatter in there. All of a sudden, the neighbor alerted us, kind of like Jeff's situation. And there were 5 or 6 cop cars there within 10 minutes. We called the police. We said, we have a squatter situation, and they went in guns drawn. And the guy was not there, but they cleared the building for us. They made sure he wasn't. All of his stuff was, which we got rid of, and we had to lock him out. But yes, no, Georgia is a very landlord-friendly state. I am not having Jeff tell these stories so that people don't invest. I just was surprised at the extremity of what you were telling me, because I've been in this, business for many years. I've never seen anything like what you're talking about. And like with Chandler and I both did some evictions, and then, so once they're evicted by the court, you then set a date with the sheriff, and when you're going to go clear the property. And we let the people know, hey, the sheriff is coming, because we don't want any drama. We didn't want to be yelling, in the yard with people. And so we let them know the sheriff was coming, and the people were gone. But same thing, we weren't allowed to go in first. The sheriff went in first, gun drawn. She cleared the area, and then she made us remove their items from the house. So it was quite a learning curve. I think it was Chandler's second week at Sid was here, maybe third. It was as by fire.
it was quite easy. It was like, hey, are you paying? And the judge would be like, are you paying? And they'd be like, no.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, that's it. Like, you're out. So we're just like, all right, sweet. It was
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
brutal with them. But
Care what
so
their story was. He didn't care. He told them, I don't care where you end up. I don't care what your story is. Did you pay rent? If the answer is no, get out. I mean, that was it.
he was, yeah. He's like, with all due respect, and they just ripped him. So
Yeah,
I'd
it
say
used to
it's
be that way here. I mean, I had to evict somebody, geez, it was probably 20 years ago, and it flowed just like that. The sheriff showed up and it was basically, here's the sidewalk, you can put your things here. But yeah, things have changed dramatically in this state.
crazy.
And kind of down the whole West Coast, we had a foreclosure that we had bought, and it was at auction, and it was empty. We went and looked through the windows prior to buying it. And over the weekend, so then we show back up on a Monday, and this was bizarre. That the house was occupied, and not just a squatter. I mean, there's pictures on the wall, fully furnished, like somebody had been living there for years. And so basically, that's what this guy would do. He would show up to the auction and find stuff that had been bought, and then he'd go occupy it because he knows that if you buy it at the auction, somebody's living in it, he can stay there for quite a while and become a major problem. And even he was looking, I think he was running the whole cash for keys program, going, "Oh yeah, I'll move," because most of the flippers, rather than deal with all the BS, would rather just give them money to get out. But the neighbor actually saw all this happen. The guy showed up on a Saturday after the Friday auction with a moving truck and put everything in. But I mean, it was down to the detail of having pictures of his kids on the wall. It was just, I'd never seen one quite like that.
That's crazy. Well, and with y'all being lenders, I'm sure you're so happy to be now putting your money in Georgia because, let's say you're lending on a property and then a squatter gets inside and it takes 6 months to get them out. That property is not going to cash flow. So that's going to hurt your investment as the lender. So, I mean, wow, 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 wow. Well, tell us more about the lending process. I love that y'all are in the private lending business. Chandler and I have not used private money before, and we're very curious to know more about what you guys do, how you do it, what you look for in a borrower. Can you just kind of give us a rundown on private money?
Sure. So, whenever, like, I meet most of the people that we lend to through networking events, such as the one that you put on once a month. And whenever it usually starts off with just a conversation with somebody, and they tell me that they're considering private money. So then I'll go out go out for lunch or go out for a beer after work or something. We'll chat a bit. I'll get to know them. What we do is largely relationship based rather than it's collateral based. So it's called hard money because it's based on a hard asset. But for what we do, I consider the private lending is more, I'd say it's 50% relationship based. If I go out and have lunch with somebody and I don't get a good feeling about, this doesn't seem like a trustworthy person or just anything at all, any kind of red flags will be like, I'm not, I don't think this is a good deal. And then we will, once we have a good rapport, then we can start talking about a deal that we're going to do. There's guidelines about private lending, and you're not supposed to lend to people that you don't know. And the way they define it is if you have had 3 meetings with someone prior to discussing a particular deal, then you're no longer strangers. So we don't do any advertising or anything. It's all organic, where I meet people at meetups and just have discussions with people, and then that turns into like a relationship, and then we can talk about a deal. So once a relationship has been established, and they'll tell us what we're doing, I'll usually go look at the property and walk it with them, and we'll talk about it, and then we'll look at the numbers. And that's where, at that point, then I would get Jeff involved. I would send the details to Jeff and say, okay, this is what these people are looking at doing. and I would usually ask them for like a scope of work of what they're doing. And it doesn't have to be like, completely defined. Just give me like the nuts and bolts of, just give me the rough outline of what you're doing, like new roof, new kitchen, new bathroom, and rough idea of how much you think it's going to cost. And that's kind of where we start off. And then when we get into it, the process is that if we agree that we're going to do it, then we usually require that the people bring some skin in the game themselves. We're not going to lend 100% of the acquisition. So as long as they're bringing something to the game, then we can lend them the money on it, and we will, at that point, we'll get an attorney involved, whoever the closing attorney is. We have our preferred attorneys that we prefer to work with. But if they already have a house under contract, maybe they're doing it through their attorney. So we'll work through the attorneys then, and we will create the loan documents and provide them to the attorney, and they will handle it from there, handle the recording, and we will have a promissory note that says how much we have lent them and how much, what the interest rate and the length that it's a promissory note is like an IOU. This is how much we've borrowed, this is how the interest rate and when it's due and when we're going to pay you back. And we get that on the security deed, and the security deed is what ties the promissory note to a specific property. So they record the security deed against the property, so that if they don't pay us back, then we have the security deed, which is a lien against the property. So then we could go and force a foreclosure on the property. And then at that point, if someone buys it at the foreclosure auction, then they would have to pay us off what we're owed. If no one buys it at the foreclosure auction, then we get the title to the property.
So Julian, just to keep it simple, let's say I have $100,000 house under contract and I plan to put 100,000 into it, and we have an ARV of 250. So I need basically $200,000 for the whole thing to buy it and rehab it. So of that 200, what percent would you and Jeff lend to me on average?
So I know we're just talking broad strokes here, but that is not a deal that we would do.
Oh,
because there's not enough margin on it. But
did you not pass the original test there? Did you feeling uncomfortable?
Yeah, I must have. Maybe I have shifty eyes.
Yeah, putting 200 grand into a property for it only to be worth 250 grand. Like if you were a flipper and then you were to sell it and there's closing costs and everything, you're not walking away with very much money.
Yeah.
So yeah, and you would have to pay us interest on it as well. So yeah, let's just say that the after repair value would be 300,000.
Okay, I apologize.
That's okay.
But we will, we do prefer that, especially on a new client, that they bring some skin or have some skin in the game. Once we've established, some rapport and then quite a few with a specific client, we will do 100% if the deal looks good. If we can see that there's still going to be plenty of equity in it. We've done some that it's like, this looks a little thin, and then we might have them bring it. But a large chunk of what we do fund 100% of it. But they're repeat clients that have performed. They know what they're doing, and have always been. They come in at or under budget. They get it done on time. So we're very flexible with those people. But on a first run, we're definitely a little bit more careful. We also look at what kind of experience do they have in the rehab world, and what type of project is this? If it's a historic home and it's their first one and it's a multi-story thing, it's like that probably isn't something we want to fund. Yeah. We also have our no pass question is, worst case scenario, if we ended up with this thing, would we be okay with that if it all goes sideways? Mm-hmm. And given that, both of us kind of come, and I've got a big background in flipping homes, I can look at it and think, well, if this was the worst case, if what we have into it, we owned it and had to fix it up and sell it, would we be in an okay position? If the answer is yes, we'll do the deal. If it's not, we won't do it.
Okay.
So we try not to go over like 70 or 75% of loan to value of the after repair value. So that's like in Julie's first example there, the 200 grand into it and 50, and selling it for 250, that would be 80% loan to value. So that is over what we would be comfortable with. If it was 300 grand, then that's 66% loan to value. So we would be more comfortable with that.
Got it.
So how are y'all running y'all's own numbers? Y'all have like pretty good technology that does it for y'all, or because I know you're all the way in Washington, it's kind of tough to for Savannah, it's kind of can be tough to run numbers because they can be very street to street. So is that something Julian's like, oh, I know the street pretty well, it's getting these numbers, or how's that work?
Yeah, it's more like that. I mean, we try to get comps. We look up Zillow, for sold properties. We're not looking at the estimates. We're just looking to see what's sold in that neighborhood. And I mean, I can tell from looking just at the map whether you can take a property from one location and apply it to that local area. So that's where most of the people that we're working with are local in Savannah and they're familiar with it as well. So we would know if somebody isn't familiar with the area, and then it would be different story. But yeah, we don't have any software or anything that we use. We just we get on the Google Maps and walk the streets in Google Maps. And like I say, I'll use, especially if it's somebody new, I will go to the property and look around the neighboring streets and stuff. But a lot of our repeat clients, I mean, most of the time I don't even go to the properties. There's one of our clients, he just buys properties, junks them out, like just, if there's a bunch of garbage in the house, he just clears them all out, lists them on the market straight away, and sells them like that. So he doesn't fix them up or anything. And I don't go to any of those houses. But then there's other clients that we work with that I know do a real nice job of remodeling. And I really want to go see that house at the beginning and then again at the end to see how nice of a job they've done on it. There's other people that we lend to that are just more about volume. And I know they're going to do the same finishes on every property. And it's just going to be, gray walls, white cabinets, same countertops. And it's like, you could walk into one and it looks exactly the same as the next one. So I don't really need to go see those ones, but
I see those every day. Every single day, these flips, they all look the same.
Yeah. That's why I like
like
working
who did this one.
One of the people that we work with is a designer. And I like going to her properties because it's always going to be something really unique. So it's fun to go see. But the rest of them, you see one, you've seen them all.
Yeah. And most of our clients, they supply us when they send a project over, they'll send over comps as well and how they came, they'll have their ARV, and we want to know, we'll kind of put the initial homework on them to provide, how'd you come up with this number? Give us the comps. And then Julian's great because he can look right at, he knows the areas and he can go, well, yeah, these, price per square foot, these all put this right, but they're all west of this road and this is east of this road. And this isn't the same neighborhood because it can change dramatically from what I understand throughout Savannah, depending on where you're at. You could, if 5 mile radius, you're on one end of it versus the other, it can be quite different.
Yeah, that's where a lot of people get in trouble here in Savannah. They comp something that's not even close to.
Well, as an agent who mainly only deals with out-of-state investors, I see it every day. They'll comp Kyler, Brownsville, or somewhere like that with the historic district. And they're like, but it's 0.8 miles away. And I'm like, that's a whole different universe as far as comps. Like you can't, it's, there are boundaries and you kind of have to watch them. I'm always trying to educate people on that because it's so hard to comp in Savannah. I always say you've got to stay half a mile or less. And also kind of look at the boundaries. But yeah, no, that's quite a challenge. I don't know other cities. I can't speak for other cities, but for Savannah, just because it's half a mile from the historic district does not mean it's worth the same as it is worth in the historic district.
So how quick is the process with y'all? Is it like, what do y'all, let's go back. Let's say I want to borrow from y'all. Like, what are some things that like I can do to speed up the process? Like, do I need to, I send you the house, here's the ARVs, here's the budget. Like, what's some other things that are like, okay, this guy's, he's on it. I'm ready to give him money ASAP.
Well, we have a pretty good example of what just happened. What was it, yesterday? I think, Julian?
Okay.
Yeah.
We had, would never work with this client. It came in and it was a little outside of what we do as a kind of a multifamily thing. So, well, we said, well, we'd like to see an appraisal, which normally we don't, because if it's right within our wheelhouse, we can just look at it and make a decision pretty quick. Appraisal came back good. And we said, okay, we'll fund it. But then we didn't hear anything from them until I think it was Monday night, and they wanted to close on Wednesday. And so we got it done. Unfortunately, the attorney that was working on it, right while we were trying to get all the documents draft, left the office at noon and wouldn't be back till 9 o'clock Wednesday morning, which is the day that we're supposed to close. So in the HUD, the settlement statement didn't make sense. So there were still issues, but we got it done, worked it out, and got it funded. So we've done deals within, days.
Yeah.
It's not ideal, especially for a new client, because it does take some onboarding, verifying that, how is their LLC set up? Because that's the other thing. We don't loan to people. We only loan to businesses. So we have to verify that the LLC is in good standing. Look at their management agreement to see who can sign and what capacity they are with the LLC, etc. But we're pretty quick.
But I think we've done it before where, it's been clients that we have worked with before, and they have went to a different borrower or to a different lender. And then the lender has just, at the last minute decided they're not going to do it, and the deal is going to fall apart. And they've called us up same day and said, hey, we're about to close. Can you step in and take over as the lender? And obviously our rates are a lot higher than what they were hoping to get through a different lender. And so we've been able to close same day. So but that's with someone that we had prior relationships with. But in general, probably the longest part about it is pulling title. So like there was someone new that I think we're going to close on today, Jeff, with Janet.
Okay.
We introduced her to our attorney, and that was probably 2 weeks ago. And she was going to pull title, and they're finally going to close on it today. So, however long as it takes for the title company to pull title is usually the longest part.
What are some things that you take very heavily when you accept a client, and what are some things that you take when you decline a client? Is it credit score? Is it history? Is it years in the game? Like, what things do you value very highly, and what things are huge red flags for you?
So we don't check credit scores at all. So that's not one of our criteria, because it's mostly based on the collateral, the property itself. So obviously they gotta run title and make sure there's a clean title. So that's the most important thing. But as far as person, the very first thing I do whenever I meet a new client is I'll Google them to see what I can find out about them. And if I see like a arrest record or a mugshot or something, then it's for beating up their wife, then probably not, because like there's like 3 main C's of lending. One of them is collateral, one of them is character, and one of them is credit worthiness. And I don't know, there's more that you can add to it, but like character is a big one. So, you know, they have to be upstanding character. Like, and if I get a bad feeling about them that they're a shady person, then probably, you know, that's just a red flag right there.
Wow. I bet you learn a lot on Google.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you can.
But Julian, I want to ask, you mentioned self-directed IRAs.
Right.
I've read I don't know if y'all know Matt Faircloth, he's the Bigger Pockets community. And
Yeah.
he talks a ton about the self-directed IRAs. That's how he gets most of his private money.
Hmm.
And can you just kind of talk about how that works? Because he talks about the compound interest in it, which can be really good. And you kind of just want to keep it rolling. You don't really want to pull it out. Can you just like
So
explain it?
yeah, so I got mine from rolling over 401k. So it's retirement funds that you can't draw on until you're was it 59 and a half. So and you can't touch the funds. It has to go. I have set up checkbook controlled IRA. So I can write checks, but I can't move the money into my own bank account and like draw it out, go into the bank and take out money. So I can write a check to a borrower or I could wire funds to the attorney's office. And then whenever the funds come back, they have to go directly back into that account. They can't go into my account and then I move it into that account. So it has the same limitations as a 401k or an IRA where it's tax deferred. So you don't pay any while you get interest on the money, and so the funds will grow from the interest that you're getting on the money that you've lent out, but you don't have to pay taxes on it until you withdraw that money.
Yeah.
So it will grow in the account tax free, and it will compound tax free if you keep making loans. So whenever the money comes back in, you make another loan, and then you've got more money that you can lend. So you're lending more and more each time, and with the compound interest, it continues to grow. And it's not until you withdraw the money that's when you have to pay the taxes on it. And supposedly the way the 401k systems and all retirement accounts work is supposedly when you're in retirement, you don't have as much of an income. So you are paying in a lower tax bracket. You're in a lower tax bracket because you have less income. But I mean, that's the traditional story that they tell everyone. But if you're a real estate investor or any kind of investor, then hopefully by the time you retire, you've got a lot more income than you did whenever you were in your working years. So you're probably still going to be in a higher tax bracket, but whatever. That's a different story.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. And I know a lot of people have questions about this self-directed, and I thought it was pretty cool that you had done that before. So I just want to ask you about it.
Yeah.
Right. I might get too detailed on this, Julian, but like you have your IRA money, and then I'm sure you have personal money that you invest, and then Jeff has his money, and then you guys are investing together. That has to be quite regulated. How are you guys able to kind of manage, let's say you're loaning $100,000. Are you have it on a spreadsheet? How much of that is Jeff's and how much of that is yours and how much is from your IRA? Or how do you guys manage all that?
So we just loan our own, or we just use our own money in Sunnydale, right? Our IRA money we use separate to that. We loan to separate entities. We don't use that for Sunnydale. So the money that's in Sunnydale, we are 50-50 partners in Sunnydale, but Jeff has a bigger bank account than I do. So whenever we go to make a loan, if I don't have the funds to do it, then Jeff will loan money to Sunnydale at a lower interest rate than what we charge the clients. So, so then I make a little bit from the difference on that.
Cool.
Interesting.
Cool. Well, we appreciate y'all coming on. Jeff, you need to come to Savannah. I'd like to sit down and eat some lunch and get to talk some more.
Yeah, I try to get there at least once a year. I was hoping to get there for St. Patrick's Day weekend,
Oh man.
but I think I've been there last 2 years in a row.
Okay.
But there's too much on the books these days. But I'm hoping to get there
You might
sometime
get
soon.
home and someone might be living in your house when you left for vacation. So we're just gonna have to ship the green beer to you. A little scary.
We have a dog. He's
Ah,
you keep him out.
There you go. Thanks for your time today. And yeah, please let us know, how can people reach out to you? Like, where can they find y'all?
So you can, if you're local people, you can come to Julie's meetup, and
There you go.
I'm there every month.
He is always there every month.
Yeah, I'm usually pretty low key, but I'll be there. Otherwise, my email is Jules, Jules, Buick, Buick @yahoo.com. So you can get me there, or I'm on Facebook. Just look up Julian Buick.
Sweet. So yeah, if you need anything, just reach out to that email or come to Julie's meetups, either or. And
Julie's.
Yeah, and Jeff's the guy in the background, so you can contact him through me.
Yep.
yeah,
Well, I want to encourage our listeners, come to the meetups, even if you don't need money now, now's the time to get to know Julian, is when you don't need anything. That's always my advice, is bankers like you most when you don't need them. And when you do need them desperately, they're usually a little freaked out by that. So I've been getting to know Julian for several years, and at some point I do hope to work with both of you. And then you'll be like, yeah, I've known you for a minute. So that's one thing I've got, except I ask dumb questions with low ARVs, but yeah, I just want to encourage everyone, start that relationship, because you never know when a killer opportunity is going to come. You don't want to let money be the reason you don't buy it. And having guys like Julian and Jeff in your pocket, that you can call and say, hey, can you help me? That can be huge. So I just want to encourage everyone, find Julian. He's there. He's a little quiet. I'll point him out to you. But yeah, it's been a pleasure getting to know you over the years. And I love learning about private money. So thank you all so much for coming.
Yeah, thanks, Julian. It's a pleasure.
And keep bringing the good stories, Jeff. You really make us glad we live in Georgia.
No problem.
All right, take care. Wow, that was such a great episode. Did you learn a few things, Chandler?
yeah, always. I think I learned something new, more than just one thing new every episode that we do. So
Absolutely. And I learned that a lovely gentleman named Jeff Jordan, who has the most normal name ever, that you and I could both mess it up multiple times. I just want to apologize to Jeff, because we love him and we're just having a day here. We've already been, getting ready for St. Patty's Day. So what are you going to do?
yeah, no. Jeff Jordan.
Jeff
Actually,
Jordan.
they go all together. I want to say Jeff Gordon, the race car driver, but Jeff Jordan. Got it.
We really appreciate Jeff and Julian coming by. They are great friends, and we look forward to working with them in the future. And we hope anyone in our audience who's needing private money, please reach out. They're good guys. I know a lot of people in town that work with them, and honestly, the biggest flippers in town that I know all work with Julian and Jeff and have had great results. It's a team approach, so we really appreciate them coming on.
For sure. But if you enjoy this episode, please like, comment, and subscribe. Share it to everyone. We greatly appreciate it. And we will see you in the next episode. Thank you.
Bye-bye.